organisations to understand the impact of her policy and why she should scrap the family farm tax?
The government has looked and assessed at the impact of this policy. Our estimates that were put forward at the budget last year said that around 500 farms would pay additional tax as a result of these changes. Those numbers were contested by all on the other side of this House, and yet the Sentax report, which the honourable member has said that he and others are interested in looking at, backs up those numbers and confirms the government's estimates.
Daisy Cooper, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, I sat with farmers and their families in Brecon and Radnor, and they are desperate. Because if they are 65 and over, they have no time to plan for the family farm tax, they cannot get insurance, and they will be put in an impossible position if the government goes ahead with the family farm tax unamended. The Sentax report sets out options that could extend extra protection for family farms, whilst rightly raising funds from those people who are currently exploiting the tax loopholes in APR. Those farmers asked me to put a question to the Chancellor. They asked, can the Chancellor please say precisely which parts of the Sentax report they disagree with and why?
I thank the honourable member for her question. I would say that I have already answered that question around the Sentax proposals, Mr. Speaker, and it is clear from their analysis that the number of estates that would pay more inheritance tax would more than double compared to the proposals that the government has put on the table. I do understand that changes to inheritance tax are always difficult, but this government had to make a decision last year to raise more revenue to make sure that we could adequately fund our public services, and this change raises £500 million, Mr. Speaker, in a fair way.
Question
number 2, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government understands the importance of in-person banking to communities, and that's why we're working closely with industry to roll out 350 banking hubs across the UK. Over 240 hubs have been announced so far, and more than 180 are already open. I know this includes 2 banking hubs in the honourable member's constituency, and I look forward to our upcoming meeting to discuss her constituents' banking needs. Can I vote in?
For her answer, but when in opposition, Labour's Shadow Economic Secretary welcomed measures to protect access to cash, but highlighted concerns that they did nothing to protect essential face-to-face banking services, which go beyond a banking hub. And now we're now seeing face-to-face banking services vanish. So while the FCA is responsible for access to cash, it appears there is no government body that oversees access to face-to-face banking services. So does the Chancellor agree that new regulation is needed to support residents and businesses in rural areas, especially as banks are now going to prevent customers from cashing cheques in post offices from January?
Mr. Speaker, we recognise the important role that post offices in particular play in providing essential banking services as well as banking hubs, and decisions about which services are available at post offices are, such as cheque deposits, are made by banks as part of their commercial arrangements. I would emphasise to Mr. Speaker that customers continue to have other options for paying in cheques, in particular, which I know is an issue for her, including in Lloyd's case via free post. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to discussing these issues further with her at the meeting.
Go Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, one way of improving access to banking in rural areas, and indeed urban areas too, would be to increase the reach and role of community banks, or CDFIs. Given that CDFIs play a big role in American economic life and are backed to do so there by the biggest banks, wouldn't it be good if our biggest banks helped to fund the expansion of CDFIs here too?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. He's well versed in all of these areas, I know, and I know he's done considerable work on this. As I said, Mr. Speaker, the banks do play a role in access to cash, obviously, and via post office banking services as well.
Minister McNulty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in this month of blaming everyone else for every woe that befalls this government and using it as an excuse to bust manifesto pledges left, right and centre, it seems that the government is claiming credit for more banking hubs. But, Mr. Speaker, we all know that the rolling out of banking hubs is a purely commercial decision by the banks. It is the banks that are choosing to do this to serve their customers. So, Mr. Speaker, is it now government policy to blame everyone else for every for their own incompetencies and claim credit for everyone else's good ideas.
Mr. Speaker, where it's appropriate to do so, and indeed it is very often appropriate to do so, we will blame the party opposite for the state or the country. And in relation, it is appropriate to do so. And specifically, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the criteria that Link used for banking hubs, I will remind him that in relation to the access to cash regime, this was designed and passed by the previous government.
Sir Russell.
Question number 3, please, Mr. Speaker.
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for her question, and she's a proud supporter of everything in the Congleton constituency. This government is committed to regional growth, with growth in all parts of the United Kingdom. That's why the Treasury has reformed the Green Book, looking at the value for money of different projects, and it's why in Cheshire East, where my honourable friend's constituency is, we've put £47 million into local transport grant funding.
Sir Russell.
Many thanks for that answer. In my constituency, we have Dane Valley Community Energy, which is a marvellous group of volunteers who have raised hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend on solar panels, which have been put onto schools and other local buildings, including Daneside Theatre and Havana Primary School. Unfortunately, there has been guidance from the government more recently, which has suspended applications in respect of solar for schools. Will she be able to look at this guidance and work with ministers in other departments as well to review this particular outcome?
I thank my honourable friend for drawing this issue to my attention, and I agree that community projects such as solar panels are a fantastic opportunity to get bills down for schools so that schools have more money to spend on teachers and on books. On the specific question she's raised about solar installations, there was a temporary pause in applications, but I am now happy to confirm that the DfE have resumed approvals for solar panels on school sites, and I would urge my honourable friend to encourage the schools in her constituency to apply for the new projects in the normal way.
Anna Dixon.
Question 4, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the heart of this government's pension reforms is the goal of bigger and better pension schemes. We are legislating for this in the Pension Schemes Bill, requiring all local government pension scheme assets to be pooled next year and for multi-employer defined contribution schemes to have at least £25 billion worth of assets. This reform agenda will deliver returns for savers and ensure schemes have the scale required to invest in productive assets right across the country.
Anna Dixon.
Many of my constituents have assets in the West Yorkshire Pension Fund, which manages more than £19 million. I am concerned, however, that some of the fund's investments are concentrated in sectors that cause harm, such as the fossil fuel industry. Does the Minister agree with me that the West Yorkshire Pension Fund could invest in socially valuable activities, such as the regeneration of the town centre in Shipley and social homes?
The LGPS actually has a strong track record of local investment of exactly the kind that my right honourable friend mentions, including in social housing, and we want to build on that record. The Pension Schemes Bill will specifically introduce requirements for local government pension scheme pools to work with strategic authorities, including mayoral strategic authorities, on local investment opportunities, which I thought the party opposite used to be in favour of before they decided that full-time chuntering was their business of the day. Along with the highest sustained levels of public investment since the 1970s, Britain will get back in the business of investing in its future once again.
Alan Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pension providers play a key role in helping Britain's tech startups turn into world-leading scale-ups, but around £3 trillion of money in pension funds sits idle. That money should be used to support our tech sector. So will the Minister commit to accelerating the Mansion House reforms successfully introduced by the last Conservative government?
Well, I thank the honourable member for his question, and I agree with where he started, but unfortunately he then went on to praise some of the work that happened under the last government, where we haven't seen the investment that he talks about actually coming through and getting to the entrepreneurs that he rightly thinks that we should be doing more to match. That is what the Mansion House Accord that we have now put in place and supported with the private sector is doing. It's what the British Business Bank is doing, bringing forward the British Growth Partnership, because we do need to see UK pension funds investing in our most innovative, fastest growing companies.
Callum Anderson.
Speaker, the establishment of the Sterling 20 sends a strong signal that this country is serious about mobilising more of its own domestic capital in productive domestic assets. And as the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor's anchor, the Buckingham-Bletchley constituency is primed to offer high-quality investment opportunities. Can the Minister set out more detail about how he is working with local authorities like Labour-run Milton Keynes City Council to ensure that we can provide that pipeline, and will he meet with me to discuss how to take it further?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. He's always a powerful advocate, both for the fast-growing companies in his constituency, but for the right pension policy for the UK as a whole, as we saw during the Pension Schemes Bill, which he sat on the committee of. The Sterling 20 is a new investor-led partnership between the UK's 20 largest pension funds and insurers. It was established at the Regional Investment Summit in Birmingham on the 21st of October, and we are working closely with them to deliver exactly the kind of investment that my right honourable friend is talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pension scheme trustees have obligation to make decisions they believe are in the best interests of savers, otherwise known as the fiduciary duty. The reserved powers in the Pension Schemes Bill could force investment in government vanity projects that is contrary to this. Does the Minister agree with me and much of the pension industry that mandation is a massive state overreach and is gambling with the futures of those saving for retirement?
No, not at all.
Gareth Davis, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mobilising more investment from the UK pension fund market is critical to driving regional economic growth. The Chancellor says that she's a builder, not a blocker, but her new proposed builders' tax threatens to drastically increase the cost of building anything, from homes to roads to nuclear power stations. This will make investing in UK infrastructure increasingly unviable. So to avoid even more investment-killing uncertainty, will the Minister agree to scrap Labour's proposed landfill tax reforms and let Britain get back to building?
What I can reassure the honourable member is that we are scrapping the attitude of the party opposite that blocked any building happening anywhere in this country year after year after year. Houses blocked, railways blocked, anything that involves any difficult choices blocked by a party opposite that gave up governing long before the general election.
Sean Davis.
Number 5, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HMRC is committed to improving day-to-day performance and the customer experience. I can let Mr. Speaker know that call waiting times in the first quarter of this year are half as long as in the same period last year, which is good news for customers. And at the 2025 spending review, the government allocated £500 million to make HMRC a digital-first organisation, and that transformation is well underway.
£20 million investment in relocating and upgrading Telford's HMRC office, with 1,000 members of staff working hard to deliver the best service possible. Will the Minister meet with me and Telford and Wrekin Council to discuss how the new HMRC campus can be at the forefront of improving the customer experience, including by harnessing the potential of AI and tech, as well as partnering with the start-up sector?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. He is a very strong advocate for Telford, both for jobs in the private sector, but also those in the public sector that we are able to bring and support in his community. I'm glad to hear that he, like me, is proud of HMRC's Telford campus and wants to see it play a key role in improving customer experience through innovation, AI and digital technology. And, Mr. Speaker, I will be very happy to meet with the honourable member to discuss just those issues.
Mr. Macbeth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor has justified her lack of licence for renting out a house as an inadvertent error. HMRC are never prepared to accept people make inadvertent errors. So will this now change? Or does the Chancellor expect to be treated differently to how everyone else is treated by HMRC when they make an inadvertent error?
She can answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am not sure that the matter that the honourable member just raised has much to do with HMRC.
Dave Begley, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we look at obviously a lot at the Treasury Select Committee about HMRC's customer service, but of course we've seen this recent episode where people have had their child benefit stopped, ostensibly on the basis of travel data. Could the Minister explain what he's doing to resolve this and what data HMRC was basing its information on?
Thank you for the question, and I want to thank the honourable member for her service on the Treasury Select Committee. She's doing a sterling job as the chair there. On this issue, this is a really important issue, Mr. Speaker. I just want to explain to the House that HMRC undertook a pilot last year to try and find a way to reduce fraud in the child benefit system. This measure is expected to save £350 million over the next 5 years, and we have already managed to prevent £17 million in wrongful payments. But my honourable friend is right to raise that a very small number of claimants did have their child benefit incorrectly removed. I'm really sorry that that happened. HMRC is taking steps, writing to those who will be affected and making sure that people who should get their child benefit payments do receive it.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Holly from Wimborne applied for a self-assessment refund in April, just £300. When she chased it in June, she was told it had gone to a specialist tax team with no reason, no time frame. She complained in August. It's now November. She's heard nothing. So while she may only be owed £300, this is happening around the country. So can the Minister tell me whether he thinks 7 months is a reasonable time to receive a basic refund and what the department is doing to speed things up?
I thank the honourable member for raising the issue of her constituent. I would be happy for her to write to the department about this. Even though it's not appropriate for me to get involved in individuals' taxpayers' affairs, I hope that the department can improve on that service. We have improved the response rates when it comes to both people making phone calls and people getting in touch via the post. But of course, there's always more that we can do.
Wendy Moore.
Number 6, please, Mr. Speaker.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The previous government left a £22 billion black hole in the public finances, and in the budget last year, I had to take urgent action to ensure our public finances were on a firm footing and to properly fund our public services, including a £29 billion investment every year in our National Health Service. You can't support more investment in our public services unless you support the tax changes to pay for them.
Chancellor, I think they're grouped.
Oh, sorry.
Questions
right,
group.
Mr. Speaker. With permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to group it with 16 and 19.
Thank you.
Mr.
Moore.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not convinced that that answer went anywhere near my question. So in terms of my supplementary, family businesses are the lifeblood of communities and constituencies such as mine. Last week I met with Family Business UK to discuss how the government's national insurance hike, alongside restrictions to business property relief, are forcing businesses to pause investment, think twice about taking on more staff, and in some cases even forcing them to close their doors. So ahead of the budget, Mr. Speaker, will the Chancellor meet with me and representatives from family businesses to seek ways in which the government will work with, not against, these really key businesses?
I thank the right honourable lady for that question. 43% of employers, almost 1 million, will pay no employer national insurance this year. That is an increase because of the changes we made to the employment allowance. Over half of employers with mixed liabilities will see no change or gain overall, and businesses can employ younger people, those aged under 21, and apprentices under 25 without mix. But the party opposite have to decide whether they will stick with this change to national insurance or not, because if you are not going to stick with this, then you'll have to admit that you won't be able to put the money into the National Health Service.
Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to the British Retail Consortium, the Chancellor's last budget caused a £7 billion cost to retail, leading to shop closures, declining high streets and job losses. If the Chancellor won't acknowledge the damage she has caused, how will she go about rectifying it? And can I start by recommending a 100% business rate relief put forward by the Shadow Chancellor?
Thank the honourable gentleman for that question. In his own constituency, in the Isle of Wight, the 6-month change in waiting lists showed that 5% fewer people are waiting for 18 weeks or longer, and that's only possible because the money we put into the NHS, because of the tax changes we made. And regard to retail sales and the impact on shops, retail sales have increased for the last 4 months in a row, with the most recent numbers for September and August outpacing expectations.
Mr. Speaker, it was always blindingly obvious that increasing employers' national insurance would lead to an increase in business costs, which would lead to higher prices, hitting working people directly and rises in inflation. And sure enough, inflation has risen steadily under this government and is now almost twice its recommended level. But at the time of the last budget, we were told it was necessary to raise taxes on businesses by £25 billion to pay for the NHS. And large amounts of money has indeed been paid to unionised workers. But just yesterday, the ONS announced that NHS productivity had fallen by 1.5% since Labour took office. So can the Chancellor explain what exactly my Orpington businesses are paying more tax for?
Well, in the Honourable Gentleman's constituency, people waiting more than 18 weeks for an appointment has also fallen, and that is exactly what that money is being used for. But the Honourable Gentleman needs to be clear, and so does the front bench opposite. If they are going to reverse the increase in national insurance, they have to also accept that there's less money for our National Health Service. That's a choice, but it would be interesting to hear whether that is the choice of that party opposite.
From West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the 6th of December, Small Business Saturday will have us all out in our constituencies supporting small business. What measures, following the announcement this morning about the need to enhance productivity, will the Treasury be introducing to assist small businesses in the current tough climate?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I know that she's a strong champion of people in Hornsey and Wood Green, including small businesses. Last year at the budget, we set out the principles and the consultation on business rates reform, and our principle there is to make it easier for small businesses and high street businesses, whilst making sure that the online retail giants pay their fair share of tax. We'll be setting out more information on our reformed business rate system to help our high streets and help our small businesses on the 26th of November.
Speaker, the party opposite gave us austerity, they gave us Brexit, and they gave us Liz Truss, including high interest rates and high inflation. This government so far has delivered the highest growth in the G7, 5 interest rate cuts, and record high levels of investment. So isn't the truth that it is the party opposite over 14 years that was the reason businesses were struggling?
Odd. This is just a rant and nothing relevant to the question. Colin Naismith.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The members opposite spend a lot of time complaining about the difficult decisions taken by this Labour government. So I wonder if the Minister can remind them what we have been able to do for public services and infrastructure as a result of the revenue-raising policies of this Labour government.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and it's exactly the case. The tax changes we made at the budget last year enabled us to put £29 billion extra a year to the National Health Service, but also rolling out free school meals and free breakfast clubs for young people. So that's the difference that this government are making. And of course, on capital spending, because of the changes that I made to our fiscal rules, we're able to invest £120 billion more on our energy security, our digital infrastructure, new homes, and through our industrial strategy. That's the difference that this Labour government is making.
Daisy Cooper, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Analysis by UK Hospitality suggests that more than half of the job losses seen in the UK since last year's budget have come from their sector.
This is further evidence that the jobs tax has been bad for growth and bad for job opportunities. Now, we Liberal Democrats have set out fairer ways of raising revenue and going for growth, so rather than the government suggesting that we haven't, could I instead ask the government, will they use the budget to consult on a new, lower national insurance contribution band to create opportunities for part-time workers, especially in hospitality?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We did increase the employment allowance at the budget last year. That's agnostic between part-time and full-time workers, and that's rightly the case. And that's why 865,000 businesses will not be paying national insurance at all this year, an increase to help our smallest of businesses. But also on employment. Employment is up 358,000 so far this year. A very different picture to what the Honourable Lady just tried to set out.
Question number 7, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The government values our world-leading distilling industry and recognises that the spirits sector has found recent economic conditions challenging due to both tariff uncertainty and high energy costs. The Scotch industry is set to be among the biggest beneficiaries from the landmark trade deal that this government secured with India, which is set to reduce tariffs from 150% to 75% initially and then to 40% over time.
I thank the Minister for that answer. Scotch whisky is one of Scotland's greatest products, with high demand here at home and across the globe. But many are worried about challenges facing the industry. The Scotch Whisky Association are calling for a multi-year freeze on excise duty for spirits to relieve some of these pressures and to back the wider hospitality sector. Would the Minister join me, GMB Scotland and others by committing to freeze spirits duty in the budget later this month?
I thank my honourable friend for her question. She is a strong advocate for the businesses and the industry in her constituency and in the area nearby. But as my right honourable friend is aware, the vast majority of Scotch is exported and so not subject to the UK excise taxes. Nevertheless, the government appreciates the importance to Scotch producers of the domestic market, and I do acknowledge the wider pressures facing the industry. On her specific question, the government's baseline assumption remains that alcohol duties will be increased with inflation each year, Mr Speaker, to maintain their real terms values. And this means that any cut or freeze does come at a cost to the Exchequer. Of course, with all taxes, the Chancellor, not the Junior Treasury Minister, will confirm her decisions on alcohol duty as part of the budget process in the normal way.
Mr Speaker, the Scottish Secretary, a grown man who seems very easy to upset, was very upset recently when the First Minister of Scotland had direct meetings with the President of the United States over whisky tariffs. The SNP and the First Minister will always stand up for Scotch whisky. So will the Chancellor follow suit, or will she continue in the Treasury's long-standing tradition of suckling off the enterprise of Scottish businesses rather than supporting them? And her tax hike on Scotch whisky last year cost jobs and investment in Scotland. So will she now stand up for that industry?
Minister.
Doesn't even dignify a reply.
I thank the honourable member for his question. And I would like to remind the honourable member of the landmark trade deal that this government did secure with India. He criticises the government for not doing enough, whereas we have secured a trade deal with India. We have secured trade deals with the EU and with the US, and we're reducing tariffs to support industry. And we're investing in Scotland too, with a record-breaking budget to support jobs, investment and growth and the public sector across the whole of Scotland.
Sean Barrett.
To number 8, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, over 700,000 small businesses across the UK pay no business rates at all as they receive 100% small business rates relief. We are transforming business rates over this Parliament, and we are cutting bureaucracy too, removing the need for small business owners like family-run cafes to submit pages and pages of directors' reports to Companies House.
Sean Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Grassroots music venues are a vital part of the heart, soul and economy of Brighton Pavilion. Treasury ministers have admitted that fairer business rates valuation methods are not currently used for many of these businesses. My local venues are calling the burdens punitive and a threat to viability. So will the Chancellor assure me she will not forget grassroots music venues in her budget?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we very much recognise the role that grassroots music venues play in constituencies right across our country, and in our reforms that we'll be setting out more detail on at the budget on November the 26th, we will have permanently lower rates of business rates for retail, hospitality and leisure premises with rateable values below £500,000.
Noel Law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite representing only around 9% of UK economic output, the retail and hospitality sectors contribute around a third of all business rates paid. So does the Minister agree with me that high streets like that of St Austell are public goods, and will he ensure that independent small businesses such as those he's described, which are central in our communities and economies, are no longer penalised by an arcane business rate system that undervalues their public contribution?
Well, I thank my honourable friend very much for his question. And high streets in St Austell, as in constituencies right across the country, need more support from the business rate system, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we're transforming the business rate system to ask those larger premises, including the warehouses used by online giants, to pay slightly more in order to permanently cut the business rates which are payable by smaller premises and on high streets right across the country.
Minister James White.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Chancellor imposed £40 billion worth of tax rises, she chose to double business rates for leisure, retail and hospitality business, and she's going to come back for more. So perhaps it will be in vain, but perhaps I can offer her a policy suggestion: scrapping business rates for 250,000 shops, pubs and restaurants. So rather than hike taxes, will she adopt Conservative policy, control welfare spending, so we can back our small businesses?
Mr. Speaker, that barely deserves a response, the question the honourable gentleman has answered. Mr. Speaker, when we came into office, the business rates relief that we inherited from the previous government was due to end entirely in April of this year. It is only because of us that we have extended it for a year, whilst we put in place the permanently lower multipliers for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses. That is businesses on high streets right across our country, which will be announced on the budget on November the 26th.
Sally James.
Question number 9, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We consulted on measures to simplify gambling duty and improve compliance, and these responses from the consultation have now been analysed, and a response will be set out at autumn budget. I recognise the social and cultural value of horse racing, which is why we are listening to the horse racing sector as we consider our response to the consultation.
Sally James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Doncaster, we have historic links to the horse racing industry and know firsthand the economic value it brings to our community and the country. So will the Minister agree to meet with the BHA to discuss the potential impact on harmonisation and an increase in betting duties on the viability of racecourses, jobs and levy payments that support horse racing and the wider sporting industry?
My honourable friend is a strong advocate for the horse racing industry and for the jobs and economic activity in her constituency. I was glad to meet with her just last week to discuss the topic that she raises today. As part of the consultation, Mr. Speaker, there has been engagement with the horse racing industry to identify any potential unintended consequences for their sector and how they might be mitigated. As I said, Mr. Speaker, the government will respond to the consultation at the budget. And yes, in response to my friend's question, I will happily meet with the BHA.
Jack Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Both Ascot and Royal Windsor racecourses are incredibly important to my constituency. I've visited both and refer the House to my entry on the Members' Register. On this issue, I heard him to heed warnings from across this House and, more importantly, the industry. I cautiously welcome the briefing to the Telegraph at the weekend. Racing, rightly, should be treated very, very differently to online casinos and gaming. Can he assure the House that taxes on horse race and greyhound race flutters will not increase?
Decisions on tax policy will be made at the budget.
Number 11, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for her question, and I know she's a tireless champion for working families in Newcastle. We know that for too long people have been feeling they are putting too much in and not getting enough back, and that is why this government has increased the national living wage by £1,400 this year for a full-time worker, putting more money directly into the pockets of around 3 million working people. The North East Combined Authority Investment Zone will benefit from £160 million investment to deliver £2 billion in private sector investment and 4,000 jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Under 14 years of Tory misrule, North East workers saw their average annual earnings fall, causing a cost of living crisis for families across the region. Yeah. But we have fantastic, passionate and productive workers. Yeah. So will the Minister promise to continue to turn the back on Tory failure by investing in the industry of the North East to deliver high-wage, high-quality jobs and to ensure, as part of a budget for working people?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right to draw attention to the record of the Conservatives being in office, and she's also right to draw attention to the fact that in her constituency she has fantastic, passionate and productive workers who need a government, which they now have, that will invest in good jobs, skills and make sure we have workers' rights on a better footing than we inherited from the previous government. At the budget, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor will be led by the government's commitment to fairness, and she'll be focused on protecting our NHS, reducing the national debt and improving the cost of living.
That's a linked question to Newcastle, so we'll go to Jill Fairness.
Question 12, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to my honourable friend for her question, and I want to pay tribute to her years of work to further financial inclusion, both inside and prior to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, this is a timely question because we are tomorrow publishing the Government's financial inclusion strategy, which sets out an ambitious programme of measures to improve financial inclusion and resilience for communities right across the UK. Earlier this year, I chaired a roundtable with the APPG for debt and financial inclusion, which highlighted our 5 key asks. In my constituency of Sheffield, Brightside and Hillsborough, nearly 70% of adults are considered to be in financially vulnerable circumstances. This is amongst the highest proportion in the city. What steps does she plan to take measure the impact of the financial inclusion strategy, and would she meet with me to discuss this in the future? Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important question, and as part of developing the strategy, the Government has engaged with committee members and other organisations on how to measure the impact of the strategy and indeed to drive its delivery as well. The strategy's implementation will be reviewed in 2 years from publication against outcomes-based metrics to provide an update on progress. And Mr. Speaker, I'll be more than happy to meet with her to discuss.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I was Economic Secretary, I advanced something against the advice of officials called the no-interest loan scheme. Now, I'm given to believe that one of her 2 predecessors since the general election may have suspended this valuable attempt to support the most vulnerable in society. Would the Minister look again at this in advance of the budget in 3 weeks' time? Because it really is something that there was wide cross-party support for.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. I'm aware of the scheme that he talks about. He'll appreciate I can't preempt neither the strategy tomorrow, the launch of the strategy tomorrow, nor indeed the budget, but I'd be more than happy to meet with him to talk about it in more detail.
We now go to topicals. Dr. Stanhope. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I first pay tribute to all those who responded to Saturday's horrendous attack, to the quick-thinking driver, the emergency services and the heroic LNER staff member, Samir Zatouni, who bravely saved the lives of passengers. Mr. Speaker, this government was elected to break a cycle of decline. We've returned the public finances to a firm footing, invested in Britain and begun to rebuild our economy. But times remain challenging. Global uncertainty is dampening growth and increasing the cost of borrowing, while inflation remains too high and productivity too low. In the face of these challenges, my task is clear. At the budget later this month, I will continue to build the strong foundations to secure Britain's future, to protect our NHS, to reduce our national debt and improve the cost of living, for a fairer, more prosperous Britain, with an economy that works for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am proud that this government has invested £250 million in putting solar panels on schools and hospitals. In Stroud, we have a programme where, through community energy funding, we're going to put solar panels on every school in the area. But I was going to ask her about Treasury rules that were blocking this, but I hear from your answer to the member for Congleton that this may not now be the case. So I'd like to ask her to confirm that this block has been removed.
help with the rules that we're on top of us. I need speedy questions, Chancellor.
So, first of all, it was very good to see my honourable friend and the engineering company Redler in Downing Street yesterday. On the issue about schools, as I said in the answer to my honourable friend, the member for Congleton, this scheme is now reopened. I have had a look at the particular school mentioned by my honourable friend in Stroud. There are potentially some issues around maintained schools, but we are looking into this and keen to work with you to ensure that schools in your constituency and indeed schools in all honourable members' constituencies can benefit from this scheme.
Tim Fuller, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is the Chancellor's definition of working people?
A working person is somebody who goes out every day to earn their income. They rely on prices that are affordable in the shops, low interest rates, taxes as low as possible, but also public services that work for them, like the NHS, where rating lists have come down by more than 200,000 already.
Richard Fuller.
Well, that's a very broad definition, and maybe the Chancellor should speak to the Prime Minister, the Transport Secretary, the Education Secretary and the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, who all gave different definitions of working people over the last 12 months. After last year's budget, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor said she had wiped the slate clean. But that wasn't true, Chancellor, was it? She said, I'm not coming back with more taxes. But that wasn't true, Chancellor, was it? At the election, the Chancellor said she would not raise taxes on working people. But that wasn't true either, was it, Chancellor? When will the Chancellor learn the truth, that she is not a commentator on the country's economic problems, she is the cause?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. When we came to office last year, there was a £22 billion black hole in the public finances. The reserve that is set out for genuine emergencies was already spent 4 times over, only 3 months into the financial year. That is the reality. We increased taxes in the budget last year to stabilise the public finances and to put a much-needed injection of cash into our public services, principally our National Health Service. Since then, anyone can see the big challenges facing the world, but also the productivity that never materialised under the past government.
Look, I've got a lot of members to get it. I'm trying to help everybody. Don't be tempted. That's the easy answer. Let me help Janet Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know the Chancellor and her team are well aware that families are struggling with homelessness and temporary accommodation, like in my constituency of Lewisham East. But will the Chancellor consider increasing finance to local councils so that they can better support and improve my residents' well-being and indeed security?
Well, thank my honourable friend for her question. At the spending review, we enabled better investment into temporary accommodation stock and strengthened local authorities' financial position. These changes will support local authorities to increase the supply of good quality temporary accommodation and drive down day-to-day spend on temporary accommodation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In her speech this morning, the Chancellor said that she must make necessary choices ahead of the budget. Will these choices once again come at the expense of rural communities like West Dorset? Or will she commit to reviewing the funding model to ensure that rurality is a funding metric alongside deprivation so that rural communities finally get the support they deserve?
Mr. Speaker, at the spending review, which my predecessor, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, announced earlier this year, we set out the record investment into the farming and rural communities right across this country, and that's only possible because of the choices that we've made on taxation and the choices we've made to balance the public finances.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chancellor please update the House on progress made with the implementation of the Green Book Review and how the changes that result might better enable investment in small northern towns like those that make up Rosendale and Darwin?
I thank my honourable friend for the question and also for the campaigning work he's done on this. At the spending review, I announced the changes to the Green Book, and particularly the work we're doing on place-based business cases, looking at how spending can cumulatively benefit an area. We are now rolling out that new Green Book with some test cases, but I'm absolutely determined we get the investment into our northern towns and cities that is long overdue.
Lewis Cocky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a new poll, Fair Fuel UK has found that 3 out of 4 road users who voted Labour want fuel duty to be kept frozen or reduced. Will the Chancellor listen to the people who put her into government and ensure this regressive tax that hits low-income families and economic growth the hardest is not increased?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House will be aware that the 5p cut to fuel duty is set to expire in March 2026, and that, as with other tax policy, the Chancellor will make a final decision on fuel duty rates at the budget in the context of the public finances.
Jogi. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Newcastle Lyme are grateful for work being done by the government to get our National Health Service back on track. Our local hospital, the Royal Stoke, is doing better, but there's still much more to do. Can the Chancellor assure me that our National Health Service will always remain free at the point of need under this Labour government, and confirm that this government utterly rejects an insurance-based system as recommended by the Reform political party?
The NHS will remain free at the point of use for as long as there is a Labour government, not something that Reform is able to promise. But as usual, Reform do one thing and say another. And in Kent, they said that they would find efficiencies so that they could keep down council tax. They haven't found a single efficiency, and that's why for 2 million people who live in Reform councils will get a council tax rise next year.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reports that the Chancellor is eyeing up doubling council tax for bands G and H, can she tell me whether she believes the family who wrote to me yesterday, who both have mid-range salaries, fully eligible for child benefit, who bought a home for just shy of £500,000 in 2013, does she really consider them rich enough to see their council tax doubled to £800 a month?
Under the last government, time and time again, council tax went up and up and up, and the funding for local councils went down and down and down. We've left councils on their knees, struggling when it comes to special educational needs, temporary accommodation, funding for homelessness, funding for adult social care. This government will make the right decisions when it comes to funding our councils and having a fair property taxation system.
Justin Bathurst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I refer to my membership of Unite. I met Unite reps from the automotive sector yesterday, including from the Vauxhall plant in Ellesmere Port, who raised with me concerns about changes to the ECOS scheme in the automotive sector. This will be an increase in taxes on working people, but it will also lead to some unintended consequences for the car sector, and also won't raise the money the Treasury believe it will. So will the Minister meet with me and interested parties to discuss this further?
I thank my honourable friend for raising this issue. The government is fully committed to doing all it can to supporting the UK car industry to grow and invest and provide employment in constituencies like his and other really important sites across the country. Specifically when it comes to the employee car ownership scheme, we should be clear that private use of a company car is a valuable benefit to an employee, but it's also right that company car tax is paid on it, ensuring fairness with other taxpayers who pay tax on cars provided by their employers. That said, Mr. Speaker, I would be happy to meet...
No! Please, I'm trying to help these members. You tell me which one you don't want to get in, because that's what it's getting to. Lisa Smart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I recently joined Sarah Laker and the wonderful team at Stationery Supplies in Marple to celebrate an impressive 20 years in business. But recent research by the British Retail Consortium and UK Hospitality has shown that 120,000 high street jobs are potentially at risk as a result of proposed changes to business rates next April. Could the Chancellor and Ministers confirm that the forthcoming budget will support my 250 local retail businesses through a meaningful reduction in rates and ensure that no shop pays more?
Meant to shorten your question for Topples, not your original one, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will be introducing permanently lower rates for those businesses in the budget.
Kenneth Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Airdrie and Shotts, along with many others across the country, will be impacted by the decision of Maiden Life for Sackrings to withdraw family protection plan cover. I understand she may be aware of this issue. So will her department investigate this matter and consider what assistance might be available to those affected?
Mr. Speaker, I am indeed aware of this issue. I know it affects those in his constituency and those in plenty of other members' constituencies too. I also know how concerned he is about it, and as other members are too. It is for the FCA to consider whether it's appropriate to take any further steps, but I have asked my officials to engage with the FCA on how they're approaching this.
Jerome May.
Economists have told the Chancellor that stamp duty is a terrible tax because it damages growth. The government's response is to double stamp duty on a £300,000 house. Why?
In the end, when it comes to property taxation, we have to make sure that we have a fair and sustainable system that brings in revenues from a range of sources. Scrapping individual taxes without any plan that's realistic and plausible to fund them is the road to economic ruin in this country. We've seen what happened in the past when Conservative governments come forward with plans to cut taxes without the means to afford it. We won't be making that mistake on this side of the House.
Stella Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British businesses face a toxic storm of crushing tariffs from America and mountains of paperwork from Europe. Now, I welcome the Prime Minister's recognition we need to do something about the latter, because in my constituency, because of Brexit, businesses now have to deal with 27 different VAT regimes rather than one. So could the Chancellor update us on what she's doing to be a red against the red tape and solve that problem?
Mr. Speaker, the work that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have been doing with Europe is all about taking down trade barriers where they get in the way of our national interest and economic growth. That's our priority, as well as cutting bureaucracy for businesses here in the UK.
Harriet Baldwin, Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor just defined at the dispatch box what a working person is. Will she reiterate at the dispatch box now what she said to the British public during the general election campaign, which is that her forthcoming budget will not raise taxes on working people?
We'll set out all our budget measures at the budget.
Tom Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How will the government help to fund the green infrastructure that we need, as through the Coastal Energy Partnership that I've helped to set up in Bournemouth, with Great British Energy taking on early-stage project development and the National Wealth Fund making those critical long-term investments?
Mr. Speaker, through our investments in the National Wealth Fund, Great British Energy, British Business Bank, UK Export Finance, we're using every lever the government has to support British businesses to thrive, in stark contrast to the previous government, which left them high and dry.
Stephen Flynn.
Trade unions, academics and industry are united in their view that replacing the energy profits levy is not just an economic imperative, it is a moral one. So how many more of my constituents need to lose their jobs before they do just that?
Mr. Speaker, at the budget, we will be setting out clearly our proposals for the future of the energy profits levy and the oil and gas mechanism. We will make sure that we can provide the certainty to business on the future regime as soon as we can.
Sam Rushworth.
Thank you, sir. People in Crook and Towler are excited by the £20 million that she's investing in the Pride and Place scheme. But after years of decline under the previous government, who failed to spend most of the levelling up money that they promised our community, what assurance can she give me that this time it will be local people in the driving seat and that we can spend the funds?
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to hear that people of Crook and Towler are already thinking about how to use their Pride in Place funding to improve their local area. And children at Peasers West Primary School will be reassured to know that improving local play parks and upgrading community facilities will be possible under this funding.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From her CV to her tax promises, would the Chancellor know the truth if it stood right in front of her?
Need to bother answering that, but no, move on. Val Rivers.
Will the Chancellor update the House on how and when schools can apply for libraries for primary funding, which she announced on the 29th of September?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and we have made a commitment that every single primary school in England will have a library by the end of this Parliament, and the Department for Education will set out the process in due course. But any primary school without a library can be rest assured that they will do soon.
Tim Farron.
Speaker, will the Chancellor consider in her budget closing the loophole in small business rates relief that allows second homeowners who are very wealthy to have their homes on the market for rental for 72 nights a year and therefore avoid paying any tax whatsoever? My constituents working the minimum wage having to subsidise them. That's not fair, is it?
Mr. Speaker, we will set out the changes that we will make to business rates at the budget.
Richard Quigley.
Mr Speaker. The Government's Pride in Place programme presents a welcome opportunity for communities across the country to once again feel proud of where they live, especially after years of austerity and neglect under successive Conservative governments. However, the Isle of Wight received none of this funding, and this feels like an oversight given the challenges our island faces, not least with cross-island transport. Will the Chancellor assure me that she is doing everything possible to ensure islanders are not left behind, and they too can benefit from this programme and feel pride in our island once again?
Well, Mr Speaker, the Pride in Place funding is going toward 250 communities across the country to make sure that local people are in control of investing in their local area. I note my honourable friend's comments about the community that he represents, and of course the government's wider agenda about driving growth, increasing people's wages, making sure that people are better off, is central to improve the lives of his constituents and those right across the UK.
Mark Pritchard.
Since the Chancellor, Mr Speaker, delivered her speech this morning, the FTSE 100 has dropped by over £22 billion. The real £22 billion rather than the fantasy £22 billion black hole. Mr Speaker, what can the Chancellor say today, right now, to steady the markets in order that all of our constituents across this House pensions are protected?
I resign. Thank you, Mr Speaker. What this government has done to steady the markets is to kick the party opposite out of office and leave them in opposition for years to come.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I welcome our government's recent typhoon deal with Turkey, which will see the brilliant team at Rolls-Royce in Filton play a key role in engine production and maintenance. Would the Chancellor join me in congratulating them, our local SMEs and others, and set out how integral she sees defence as an engine for growth?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and she's a solid defender of businesses and working people in her constituency. The Defence Industrial Strategy is about supporting British industry as we up what we spend on defence, and countries around the world do the same. We want British businesses and British workers to benefit from that investment.
Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Through Freedom of Information requests, Restore Britain has uncovered unpublished Treasury analysis breaking down contribution by ethnicity. Evidently, the data exists, so will the Chancellor today commit to go further and publish the same analysis by nationality so that we can see which groups are paying their way and, more importantly, which groups are not?
Mr Speaker, I'm considering how to respond to that question, but I will simply leave it at saying that everyone must pay their fair share of tax. That's something this party is committed to in government.
What happened?
Constructive note, Mr Speaker. For the last year, I've been campaigning hard for Eden Portland to open in my constituency. If opened, it will be a world-class attraction, rejuvenating Portland, attracting new investment, creating well-paid jobs and promoting our coast. The project is a success story waiting to happen. So will the Chancellor of the Exchequer continue to work with me, Dorset Council and the team at Eden Portland to deliver this exciting project as soon as is possible?
I thank my honourable friend for raising with me again about the opportunities in Portland. As he knows, we're working closely with Dorset Council, the project, and indeed with my honourable friend to try and bring this to fruition.
Chris Coughlin.
I agree with her on the use of public R&D as one of the most effective levers for economic growth. But public R&D is not significantly increasing over the entire period, 5-year period of the spending review. So does the Chancellor agree with me that if the government is serious about economic growth, it must find a way to increase public research and development?
We are increasing in real terms in every year of this Parliament spending on research and development for exactly the reasons that the honourable gentleman mentions. But we're doing more than that as well. We're supporting start-up and scale-up businesses through our pensions reform, through the British Business Bank and through UK export finance. We're absolutely determined to ensure that the money that goes into R&D in this country turns into great businesses that stay in this country.
Will you join me in congratulating the great work of Red Cat, a catapult based in Hyndburn that's been supporting over 300 jobs being safeguarded and the development of 46 new products? Does the Minister agree with me, and would they meet with me to consider the role of catapults in places like Hyndburn to support the picture of economic growth?
Catapults have been a big success in driving economic activity, especially in areas like manufacturing and engineering, which are very prevalent in all parts of the country, including in my honourable friend's Hyndburn constituency. It was a pleasure to visit Hyndburn with my honourable friend last year, and I look forward to having the opportunity to do so again.
In the past few weeks, I've visited two incredible local businesses, Saragosta Spirits, a local gin distillery, and Williams Family Wines, an award-winning winery. But such entrepreneurial success is being hampered by small producer relief, adding significant additional duty costs and preventing them from growing. So with English viticulture and wines enjoying a surge in popularity, will the Chancellor consider extending small producer relief to drinks above 8.5% ABV? And if not, why?
All of the decisions, Mr. Speaker, in relation to tax will be made at the budget in late November.
Juliette Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Broxtowe, Claire founded Little Foxes Playtown that caters for and is enjoyed by both children and parents in the community. However, Claire's business has struggled with the cost of business rates and now having to pay VAT. Would the Minister assure me that the changes in business rates will benefit small business owners like Claire, ensuring they can continue to serve the local area?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and one of the things that's really important about the reforms that this government will undertake to business rates is that we support small businesses to be able to grow and invest. They are the backbone of our communities and the backbone of our country, and the reforms that we will set out of the budget and we will continue to have conversations with members across this House and businesses on will, I hope, continue to support and invest in our small businesses.
Jim Ramsey.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Chancellor spoke of difficult decisions for everybody but the ultra-rich. With billionaire wealth soaring while living standards for most people fall, does she agree it's time to double down on gross inequality in our country and tax extreme wealth fairly so we can tackle the cost of living crisis, end child poverty and invest in our public services?
Well, as the honourable gentleman knows, that is not what I said in my speech this morning. And in the budget last year, we got rid of the non-dom tax status, we introduced VAT and business rates on private schools, we increased capital gains tax, we increased tax on private jets, and we got rid of the carried interest, more than the Green Party has ever done to reduce inequality in this country.
Sorry, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So often it is the farm that is the very core of a rural economy. Could my honourable friend confirm what assessment has been made about proposed changes to agricultural property relief on growth opportunities in rural areas and the viability of rural communities?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. When it comes to the proposals that have been made by Sentax and others in relation to the changes to agricultural property relief, as I said earlier in questions, it is the case that the proposals that were put forward by that organisation would result in twice as many farms paying more tax than are planned to do under the proposals that the government put forward. We think our proposals are right and fair, Mr. Speaker.
Lockhart.
Mr. Speaker, asylum accommodation costs are set to quadruple in Northern Ireland from 100 to 400 million and across the UK to 15.3 billion in the next decade. Before hiking taxes again, shouldn't the Chancellor look at where the waste really lies when we are funding an asylum system that is failed, chaotic and expensive? This is not racist or far right. It's looking after our own citizens who can't pay their bills.
Mr. Speaker, I absolutely agree with the Honourable Lady that we should be reducing the cost of asylum accommodation, and indeed that's why our commitment to close all asylum hotels in this Parliament is so important.
Brian Leishman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When will the government lift the two-child cap?
The last Labour government cut child poverty significantly, and so will this one.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, between 2010 and 2020, the personal tax allowance threshold went up by 9.2% on average per year. However, it's been frozen since 2021 by the previous government, and the freeze has continued under this government. Will the Chancellor consider unfreezing the personal tax allowance and adjusting the additional rate and higher rate bands to compensate to ensure tax receipts are maintained?
Again, yes. I thank the honourable member for the question. It is important to realise that changes to taxation if they are unfunded, will mean additional borrowing, and this government will make sure that we do not return to austerity, as the members opposite did, but nor, Mr. Speaker, will we return to additional borrowing, which causes interest rates to rise, causes the cost of mortgages for families to go up, and leads to economic chaos. That is not the approach that this government will take, Mr. Speaker.
Please, questions. We now come next. Do you want to leave? Yeah. Thank you. We now come to presentation of the bill. Sarah Dyke.
Dairy Farming and Dairy Products Bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday, 28th of November.
Friday, the 28th of November. Okay. Thanks. Right, we now come to the 10-minute rule bill. I call Alice MacDonald.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to make provision for a right to paid time off work for fertility treatment and for connected purposes. Deciding to start or grow your family should be a time of joy and happiness, of making plans for the future. And every year in the UK, hundreds and thousands of babies are born under such circumstances. But for some people, the path to parenthood is not simple or easy. According to the World Health Organization, infertility affects 1 in 6 people globally. And whether it's due to these medical factors, being in a same-sex relationship, or considering solo parenthood, there are so many people who desperately want children but who can't without extra medical support. That comes through the form of fertility treatment. In 2023, 52,400 patients underwent IVF in the UK. These are not statistics, these are our friends, our colleagues, our constituents. And right now they are not entitled to the support that they deserve. This has, of course, an especially big impact on women, given that they are the ones most often undergoing fertility treatment in the form of IVF. But currently there is no legal right to paid time off to attend fertility appointments. You have to hope that you have an understanding employer, or as I shall come to, take sick leave or annual leave instead. In fact, the Equality Act Code of Practice on Employment makes a comparison between a woman having fertility treatment and a man having cosmetic dental surgery. How can that be right? Because let's be clear, fertility treatment is not a lifestyle choice, it is a necessity for so many people. But as I have heard from many women, some employers do treat fertility treatments as an elective procedure and don't allow employees time off, as would be the case for other medical procedures. And let's be clear, IVF is not a simple filling or a dental clean-up. A single cycle of IVF typically involves 5 to 7 appointments, often at short notice, with timing dictated by hormone levels and follicle development that cannot be predicted. Throughout, you're pumping your body full of hormones and drugs which can have an extraordinary physical and emotional toll. In fact, research conducted by Fertility Matters at Work, and can I pay tribute to them for all their work on this issue, showed that 87% of people say they experience anxiety or depression directly related to their treatment. Mr. Speaker, so many stories have been shared with me and with other organisations about the impact of having no legal right to paid time off for fertility treatment. How women have had to use all of their annual leave, how they face disciplinary action, how they've hid what they are going through from their employers, and how huge a toll this has had on their mental and physical health. At an already stressful time, people, in particular women, are having to navigate more uncertainty and stress. That's why I'm bringing this bill forward, because of the huge impact the current situation has on many of our constituents. Sarah's story, whose name I've changed for legal reasons, paints this clearly. After pouring her all into her job for 5 years, Sarah and her husband decided it was the right time to start a family. After months trying to conceive, she began IVF. What followed, in her own words, completely blindsided her. The staggering number of tests, the drop-everything-at-once appointments, the cocktail of drugs that she would have to inject into her body in her office toilet. Sarah feared disclosing to her employer that she was undergoing fertility treatment, and she was right to, because Sarah developed complications and had to spend weeks in hospital, which meant she had to tell her employer that she was undergoing IVF. Not long after, her boss suddenly told her that she needed to work abroad. When she explained that she needed to be close to her IVF doctor, she was told she had to go anyway. An employment lawyer told her she had no legal grounds to challenge. The choice she was left with was stay or leave, family or career. It was a choice she never should have had to make. This cannot be right, Mr. Speaker. The situation currently is deeply unfair, and the disproportionate impact this has on women contributes to wider equality challenges such as the gender pay gap and career progression. In the most extreme cases, women are having to choose between a career and a child. So the bill I present to this House aims to right this wrong. It is straightforward.
It creates a statutory right to paid time off for employees undergoing fertility treatment for all necessary appointments. And it gives partners a right to time off too. And that's important because, as one person said, I wanted to be there at the conception of my child. Mr. Speaker, I do not think that is an unreasonable request. The bill mirrors the existing framework for antenatal care, recognising that fertility treatment is equally deserving of workplace protection. And fundamentally, the question it places before this House is whether we believe that everyone who wishes to have a child deserves a fair chance at doing so, of whether the state will support all its citizens who have chosen this path, of whether we have a moral duty to level the playing field for those who, at no fault of their own, find themselves struggling to get pregnant. This is about fairness. And on that point of fairness, while this bill is limited in its scope to employment rights, we must also tackle the postcode lottery of access to NHS-funded IVF cycles, which organisations like Fertility Action and LGBT Mummies have so powerfully campaigned to address. Because currently fewer than 10% of ICBs in England offer the recommended 3 cycles of IVF. Your chances at having a baby should not depend on where you live. But to return to this bill, Mr. Speaker, it is also in our own national interest. As Becky Kearns from Fertility Matters at Work has said, this is also a workforce crisis hiding in plain sight. We're facing a global fertility decline, but failing to support those actively trying to start a family. Last year, fertility rates in England and Wales reached an all-time low, falling for the 3rd year in a row to 1.41 children per woman. In order to even just sustain current population levels, it needs to be 2.1. So we need more people to have babies, and we should be helping those who wish to become parents and grow their families. We'll be raising the future workers and taxpayers that this country will depend upon. It's of course not the only solution to falling fertility rates, but it would help. And meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, amid this climate of stigma, of women being afraid of revealing they are undergoing treatment, there is a very real cost for British business. Without the right to receive time off, up to 63% of people take sick leave to attend appointments. And because many are concerned about telling their employers, they're often taking whole days off to hide their appointments, instead of the few hours they actually require. And recent research actually published this week estimates that this is costing UK employers up to 54 million in unplanned sick leave every year alone. Just one example of the cost to businesses. So providing a statutory right doesn't just protect employees, it gives them permission to take time openly and plan it with their employer, transforming chaos into clarity for everyone. And Mr. Speaker, let me add that accessing treatment can be even more challenging for those working in certain circumstances, such as shift work or travelling often. And in fact, it's smart business too, because 86% of employees would be attracted to a role in an organisation that provides fertility support. And indeed, there are already many businesses who recognise this is not only the right thing to do, but their own interest too. Businesses like Centrica, Cadent Gas and Aviva, which has a strong presence in my constituency, have all voluntarily given paid time off to their employees for fertility treatment. But whether someone can attend their fertility appointment should not depend on luck of the draw, a kind manager or an understanding employer. It should be the norm for everyone. And in many other countries, bespoke employment legislation has already been developed. People in countries including South Korea and Malta are entitled to a right to paid time off for fertility treatment. Mr. Speaker, we have come a long way as a society. For decades, we've provided paid time off for antenatal leave, then maternity leave, and soon, thanks to Labour's Employment Rights Bill, day one rights for paternity and parental leave and bereavement leave for pregnancy loss. But we must look at fertility treatment too, because the pathway to parenthood, as I know myself, is not always easy. And this bill will also help shift the culture and narrative in workplaces about a topic that has remained taboo for far too long. And I know that there has been support across the House for this change. I pay tribute to the former Conservative member, Nicky Aitken, who introduced a similar private member's bill in the last Parliament. And I also like to thank the government, current ministers and past ministers for their engagement with me on this issue to date. I know that they are listening. And if we cannot get a change in the law soon, I would encourage members to ask businesses in their constituency if they will join others by voluntarily providing paid time off for fertility treatment. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is deeply fitting that this bill is presented in Fertility Week, a time to challenge taboos and raise awareness of the devastating physical, emotional and social impacts fertility problems can cause. And how better could this House show that it is alive to these issues, to these injustices, by giving its support for this bill today? This bill is about fairness. It's about saying to the thousands of people who undergo fertility treatment every year that we see you, we support you, and you should not have to face this alone. It's morally right, it's right for our economy, and it's right for our national interests, and I commend this bill to the House.
The honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
Andrew Pates, Daniel Francis, Jess Asato, Kate Osborne, Matt Temain, Michael Wheeler, Olivia Blake, Rachel Blake, Sarah Owen, Sarah Russell, Stella Creasy and myself, Mr Speaker.
Alice MacDonald.
Fertility treatment, right to time off bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday the 28th of November.
Friday the 28th of November. Hold on. Right, we now come to the Opposition Day motion on supporting the